Hello, learning friends. We're going to travel back to October of 1765, nearly 11 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence, to take a look at the first time that the American colonies in North America are going to kind of come together to say something with a new, unique voice. No one's going to listen, though. But here we go. Let's take a look at the Stamp Act Congress right about now. So ironically, it's going to be Great Britain that actually forces us together to start acting as Americans, even though we're really not Americans yet. But we really have to go back to the French and Indian War of 1763. We even have a video on that. But at the end of that war, Great Britain kind of looked at the bill and they were like, holy smokes, that costs a lot of money. And it's going to continue to cost a lot of money if we're going to have to keep troops in North America. So we have to find a way to raise money. And they tried to do that through indirect means. First, they started something called the Sugar Act and the Currency Act, which were really indirect taxes. They're really export trade taxes, but it's not raising the kind of revenue that they're going to need to pay the bills. So they decide they're going to go for a more direct approach. And this is unique in this system of American colonies and British rule, is that they're going to bypass the colonial assemblies and tax the people directly. It's not that we didn't have direct taxes, but they were always internal taxes that were passed by colonial assemblies. But this is coming from the Parliament way over on the other side of the ocean. Is basically going to require British colonists in North America to have to go to a government agent to get this stamp on all kinds of papers. So deeds and court papers and commercial papers and dice and playing cards and wills and basically anything on paper had to get this magic stamp to show that you paid the tax. And the colonists aren't digging this. They're starting to protest. They're starting to raise their voice. And those voices are being heard through these colonial assemblies. And that's really where this Stamp Act Congress is going to originate. So in succumbing to that political pressure, the colonial assemblies, and at least 9 of the 18 colonies, there were 18 colonies, because we're including East and West Florida, we're including Quebec and Newfoundland, but it's going to be 9 colonies, and they are 9 of the original 13 American colonies that are going to show up in October of 1765. And 3 of the colonies that didn't show up, North Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia, they were not allowed to by their colonial governors. But when the king does get the message, when Parliament does get the message, they not too happy. This is actually the first instance of a general Congress being called together under the British Crown without the permission, that's right, of the British Crown. All right, let's go to October 7th, 1765, Federal Hall, New York City, and take a look at the proceedings of the Stamp Act Congress. So we actually don't know too much about what was discussed in terms of content at the Stamp Act Congress. Most of this comes from kind of journals and correspondence, because the actual congressional journal is really skimpy. And that might have been because the chairman of the whole Stamp Act Congress was a guy by the name of Timothy Wriggles, who was kind of put in place under pressure of the Massachusetts governor, who was a big-time loyalist. And in fact, Wriggles himself is a loyalist. He's going to flee to Canada during the American Revolutionary War. And in fact, it was so heated during the Stamp Act Congress that one of the more independent-minded representatives actually challenged Wriggle to a duel. And then he took off the next morning for Massachusetts. How about that? But if you ask Sam Adams who was the real soul of the Stamp Act Congress, it was a man by the name of James Otis. But many of the representatives at the Stamp Act Congress also were independent-minded down the road. And they're going to be some of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, the writers of the Articles of Confederation, and even the writers of the Constitution itself. But in terms of what we know was discussed, it was really a debate about direct and indirect taxes. And in the documents created, like the Declaration of Rights and Grievances, they're really going to be talking about this concept of no taxation without representation. And that was James Otis. He's the one who laid that down. And really, that is the foundation of the American Revolution, that the Stamp Act is a direct tax that went over the heads of the people. And in that document, that Declaration of Rights and Grievances, they start off by saying, we love Great Britain. We're British citizens. We owe everything to the king. We love the king. We love the Parliament. But hey, hey, ho, ho, direct taxes It's got to go. That if anyone's going to do internal direct taxes, it's going to be the assemblies in the colonies themselves, because we are the ones who vote for them. And unless we're voting for the members of parliament, you don't have a constitutional right to tax us. You can do indirect taxes like the Currency Act, like the Sugar Act, but you can't do these direct taxes. And there was a lot of controversy over if they were going to actually send some of these documents to Great Britain. And they end up writing a letter to the king. They write a memorial to the House of Lords. They write a grievance, a petition to the House of Commons. And when those letters get to Great Britain, they don't even read them. They're like, if we read them, they're legal. And you're not legal because we didn't give you permission to come together. But at the end of the day, the message that comes out is, yeah, we're British citizens. And, we'll continue to be loyal British citizens. But you don't have a right to tax us without representation. So what are the results? Well, the Rockingham administration, which is in charge in Great Britain, is going to reject all of these papers coming over, these grievances. They're basically going to say, you don't have a right to say any of that, that Parliament is still in charge. But because there's so much political pressure over in Great Britain from the merchant class over there, because these boycotts in the colonies are affecting the bottom dollar of merchants, that they're going to get rid of the Stamp Act. But just to make sure that the colonists know, it's not because of their protests, it's not because of their silly Stamp Act Congress. They're going to pass a law in Parliament called the Declaratory Act, which basically declares we the man and you not the man. Basically saying that everything that comes out of Parliament is the final word, and the colonists don't have a right to grieve it. They don't have a right to nullify it. They don't have a right to protest it and reject it. They have to accept it. So they're kind of laying down the law. But the other big effect is that this is the first time, baby. This is the first time that the colonies are going to come together to say something with a uniquely American voice. And it's also going to show kind of the foundation of the revolution, which is financial, right? No taxation without representation. So it is significant because it is the first thread, shall we say, in this new cloth we're going to knit of the American soul. Boy, that was really sappy. We hope that you got the basics, though, of what the Stamp Act Congress was, and we certainly hope that you subscribe to Hip Hughes History if you haven't done that, and you check us out online at www.hiphughes.com, where you can visit the video arsenal, where we have like 1 million videos. There's like 1 million, like really. Well, maybe it's more like 500. And you should always remember what I say at the end of every video, because it's true all the time. Where attention goes, energy flows. We'll see you, my learning friends, next time you press my button.